when I figured that out, it's like, why are you going against your own DNA?
Yeah,
you know?
you're right. You're
like
right.
lean into your authentic self. He was like this weird force ghost, like encouraging me from beyond the grave, like, be yourself, Josh.
You're listening to the Angry Designer Podcast, where we help frustrated graphic designers survive and thrive. This week, we're bringing you a live recording from Creative South 2024, beginning a new series of event-based interviews called The Angry Designers Live.
What's up, Angry Designers? We are back from Creative South with yet another live interview, and today we're interviewing one of the guest speakers. You spoke yesterday or today?
This morning, first thing.
All right.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. You are?
I'm Josh Lewis, and I'm an art director, illustrator, and author living in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Oh, you know what? I'll be visiting Colorado soon.
Oh,
right,
really?
Right. I am going there and spending a couple days and then actually driving back.
To Toronto?
Yeah, Waterloo, but yeah, it's like a 22-hour drive.
Canada,
Nonetheless, but
sorry, I hate to dump down where you live to one whole country.
Well, you know, it's small Canada on the map, right?
Tiny.
It's easy to miss us.
Sorry for being the dumb American.
No, but it is a long drive, but it looks like a nice one. I mean, it looks like I'm going to Colorado and what else? Definitely Minnesota? And what else?
Minnesota can be beautiful
as
well. Yeah, Wyoming, and then there should be like South Dakota.
Oh, I get that. Oh, it's going to be kind of fun, actually.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Beautiful scenery up there.
Yeah, that's the whole reason why I thought I'd give this one a shot, right? Because it was just like, hey, why not? It's all about fun experiences, right? Things that you're going to remember, right? Kind of like your story about things you remember from when you were little. You like that, right? You like that segue?
I like that
was
segue.
pretty good, right?
That was nice.
Right, so let's start, because you this is not like you're new to this game. You've been in this space for a little while, right?
Yeah, I've been doing this 20 years now. Like, I started professionally in 2004.
Yeah.
I had design as more of like a hobby, something I was interested in when I was in high school. So really got into it in the late 90s, around 98, my junior year of high school. I had a friend who was into Photoshop and trying out graphic design, and I wasn't as cool as him. I had this like program called Jask Paint Shop Pro, which was like always one or two versions behind. Yeah, Corel ended up buying them a little bit later.
Oh wait, you lost us at PC. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. Okay.
I was on a PC. I had not converted to a Mac yet.
Yet is
the key word, right?
Yeah.
Which is
I've
the
been on a
reason
Mac
why
forever.
he's still here.
Yes, I've been on a Mac for almost 20 years now. So
Yeah. Good. And at what point? Like, I mean, again, so you're experimenting. Your friend got you into this. You know, how far? Like, I mean, where did this take you?
I was pretty aimless, actually, in my senior year of high school. I knew that I liked getting into this design world, but I didn't know who I was at that time. And honestly, I went to college in Minneapolis for youth ministries, and that was so not for me. And then I dropped out, moved to Colorado Springs, where my parents had moved to, met and married my wife, and we were really young. I was 19, she was 20.
Dang.
This was not the plan, and we had started having a family a year later.
Wow.
So I became a dad at 20. Then my daughter that was my son. My daughter was born at 21, and then by 25 we had my third kid, my son. And yes, I know where babies come from.
Right. But apparently not where protection comes from.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kidding.
Exactly. Anyway, but that, like, when my wife was pregnant with my daughter, that lit a fire up my butt to like do something with my life. And so I went back to school for visual communication, which like really like helped me get some more experience, and then with a year of going back to school, I got my first design job. So
wow, dude!
But it was my young family that was like the motivation to actually get really, really good. I was very fortunate to work in children's design right away. I worked on a audio show for children, and we did everything from like website. I worked on the website to like packaging to in-store displays. So it was just a lot of
you jumped on it all.
Yeah, a lot of great experience, and then after that 5 years there, I went to my next job where I helped start a children's magazine at this nonprofit that I was working at, and we worked on that.
So did the first job jump you to the second one?
Yeah, it was in the same town.
It seems like it was in the same
town, but it was like there was an opening and it had paid more, which is what was critical for a young family.
Even the audience, the work was similar. It sounds
very
like it
similar.
was
very similar kids work.
Yeah,
which I found with both of those jobs, that's what I really loved. And yeah, long story short, I found myself not working on the kids magazine again, not again, but like, and that was just it crushed me, honestly, just because that was the first time career wasn't going well. Yeah, and I had been working on it for 8 years at that point.
Everything that you thought, that trajectory that you were heading on, came to a stop. Yeah.
Well,
let's address this first before we go too far. Yeah. So, I mean, again, a lot of people, they take that to heart, which I think you did.
Right.
Because you jumped for a specific reason. And what happened?
So, long story short, this was around 2011.
Yeah.
I was, the iPad was really new, so I was taking this kids magazine and I worked on a prototype for the magazine, and we were able to introduce video and some interactivity and some audio and a lot of cool things. And they also had a magazine targeted towards adults for this nonprofit, and I built 2 prototypes for the iPad. That convinced the vice president to open a digital designer position. So what I was actively working on convinced people to try to create my own job, and then it was offered to me because of all the
what you did
work.
Up until that.
Yeah, but there was a lot of I was struggling with clarity of what that job actually entailed, so I asked questions about it, and then things got really weird. Yeah, and just like I think there was a little misunderstanding, but honestly, looking back, I think it was more about they cared about getting the right person for the main magazine and weren't as concerned with this kids magazine.
Yeah.
So that person sucked up all the responsibilities for both magazines internally, and then I was, working in marketing, creative services, which was technically where I was working at the time. But
we always say, like, when we recommend everybody, when you get into a place, whether it's with a customer, whether it's within a job, make yourself indispensable.
Exactly.
Try to do as much as you can, and you're almost like creating your own job.
Yeah.
Right. And build those foundations so deep that it's not so easy for them to just kind of pick up and move you to a different department because they want to put someone else in for whatever happened. It sucks. I've had that happen.
Yeah. So I wasn't working on kids' work anymore, and my whole department was struggling during that time. We had 5 creative directors in 7 years, so it was like pretty unstable, pretty unpredictable.
What was the environment like?
Well, excited every time somebody came in, but they didn't last long.
Yeah.
I think I worked with really good people where we tried to stay positive. Like, if we were getting paid for the job, we were going to do the best job that we can. But then my whole department worked on marketing, promotional type work, highly creative. And then the higher-ups decided to take us into the land of direct mail. So it was like a worst-case scenario where I'm like, high concept work. Then I'm laying out letterhead into InDesign, at 10 to 12 point type, and then some email campaigns. We still did occasional creative work, but it was just like a hard turn. And so I knew I needed to get out. And so I had started applying. This is around 2012. And I started applying for a bunch of stuff. I think over the course of 2 years, I applied for 40 to 50 positions. I was trying to find a right fit, but I wanted to cast a wide net, and I wasn't afraid to move, but I only got 3 interviews during that time, and I got none of them. And so I realized I wasn't that connected with people because I only knew the people at the last job and then the job I was at. So it was just like, it's just that hard lesson that it's not just about applying to a bunch of stuff. You actually have to get out there, get connected with people. They have to know you. And it's more, we'd rather work with people that we know and trust than just some random person, Sometimes it works out where there's a random person off from the application list, but not always.
Yeah. Wow. I know. But it's true, regardless if it's business or personal, like that networking. It's hard, but man, you do have to grow that network.
Yeah,
and this is why.
Yeah, and I in my talk I was talking about this was when I spiraled down to 4 years of career hell.
Yeah. Wow.
Because I was just struggling. Yeah, I was struggling during that time, and then so I went to my first creative conference called Creative Works, which is a lot like Creative South, but it's in Memphis, Tennessee, and I was super shy. Had a lot of social anxiety, to be honest. At that time, I was not very confident back then, and so, but I knew I was going to spend the conference alone if I didn't get in touch with my inner extrovert.
Yeah.
And I know I was awkward as hell, but I introduced myself to anyone and everyone, and then it turns out people aren't that scary, especially in this crowd, right?
Yeah, I know.
Especially
right?
in this
It's
crowd,
a pretty
everybody's
cool
super
crowd.
chill, welcoming, encouraging. We'd talk shop, we'd talk life, grab beers, whatever, and just super encouraging during this right now the darkest part of my career. And that was when I first met Clark Orr, who's here. And I was just honest with him. I'm like, dude, I'm struggling right now in my career. I want to go out on my own, but I don't see where any of this is going. And I had my cards that had my illustration work because I'd been illustrating during that time. And he said,
At
he looked
home?
at home, on my
while
own
you were
personal-
off. So that's key. So while you were off for this time,
Yeah.
you're still honing your skills. You're
Yeah, it's all at this time. Yeah. So Clark looks at my work. He's like, "Your work's solid, man. Keep going." You know? And it was just that. Yeah. Just keep at it, and that's kind of the sense that I get anytime I'm at a conference or I'm talking with friends. We need each other. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you got this hustle.
Yes.
You're honing your skills. You're doing what you know that you have to keep going. You're just not accepting defeat and then going to go work at a Five and Dime or something like that. In the meantime, right? So what happened? Where did this start changing for you then?
Yeah,
'Cause
when
I see the direction, but I don't want to tell everybody.
Yeah.
Shh.
Want to stick around?
Yeah. So I came back from that conference. My situation hadn't changed, but my attitude had. It was I wanted to be. I was more determined ever to go. Okay, I want to do kids design again, and so. I was more than ever determined to get there, and so my wife and I were talking about let's save 3 to 6 months of money so we have a little cushion for when I go out on my own. Well, not even a year later, my department's struggling through this time. We get one of those Monday morning 8 a.m. random emails of we have a meeting in 30 minutes, which is always never good. So we get in there, HR is present, and we're everyone was told you can either reapply for your job or leave with severance. And I was
unbelievable.
See,
Yeah.
There was a few of us that left that week, and but between what we had already saved and then severance, it was enough cushion for me. It was huge. Yeah, to where we had the cushion that we needed to get out. And even though I was excited, I was also processing this deep sadness of 4 years. How could I waste 4 years of my career? I could have done this, I should have done that, but I certainly should be a lot farther along. As I was sitting in the sadness, I also realized there's some really good things that happened, right?
Yeah.
I built grit and resilience. I was able to manage unpredictability.
Yep.
I got out of my little bubble and started meeting a bunch of people, and I had this deep drive to never get stuck like this again.
Yes.
And so even in all that struggle, there was beautiful things that set me up for my next step, which is going out on my own, which you have to have grit and resilience. You have to manage unpredictability, all those things. So
You're I got this.
Well, at that point, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's exactly it. It's you people think that it's always just a very similar path and everything's all good. And when something bad comes, you just, ooh, poor me. But it's a learning experience. We heard that even yesterday with Lincoln's talk, right?
Oh, yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like when something negative happens, not that you can turn it into a positive, but it is.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's more people need to focus on that it's like, it's not necessarily a negative if you can gain some sort of value from it.
Right.
It sucks when you're in it.
Oh, 100%.
But now as you look back on it, you think, man, that was
I'm so thankful for that time.
Yeah,
honestly,
right.
honestly, yeah.
Exactly.
Because I would have just stayed within the companies that I was familiar with, and I'd probably be a creative director or an art director. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I've done a lot more interesting things that I've wanted to do.
Yes. Right?
Yeah.
So now you got this freedom, you got this cushion, you got this runway. What's next?
Yeah, so I was primarily taking design clients on as I was trying to build my portfolio with illustration. And so I was one of those designers that was like, I want to do a children's book one day. And fortunately, I had some authors who were self-publishing that hired me. I made like $4,000 like the first book, which is not enough to cover like a project that runs 2 to 3 months.
Okay, fair.
But fortunately, they let me do my thing. And after the first one, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. And then it took me up to 4 of those that because like, okay, now I know my approach for a kid's book. I don't know if it's any good, but I now know the steps it takes to get there because it's so much extra work. And so I was going to children's book conferences, just trying to get some knowledge of learning. SCBWI is big here in the U.S. I think they have some internationally, but it's primarily here in the U.S. And I just encourage everyone, like when you're first starting out something new, you have to create a pile of work. You just have to get through, create lots and lots and lots of things. Try to learn on at least one thing on everything that you're working on, and then you have to get honest feedback because I was the designer who illustrated, and like designers really appreciate illustrators. So I was getting a lot of praise when I would illustrate, but then when I was out there, like it was hard finding illustration work. And to be honest with you, I had a blind spot that I thought I was a better illustrator than I actually was. And so I tell people to get reviews because you have to pay people to tell you that you suck because everybody's usually really nice. You know what I mean?
Sometimes it feels hard to get an honest opinion, doesn't it?
Right.
Yes.
And I was at one conference where it was early on, and there was this young editor who was at a big publisher, and she looked at my work and tore it to shreds. It was not constructive criticism at all. Publishing is like this. Especially in New York, they treat it like this fine art. It's this like established like artist kind of approach of what they like. And so I'm coming in, I grew up watching Looney Tunes and like, old cartoons and putting some of that influence into my work. And so I would get like, you're too cartoony, you're too commercial, and it just didn't feel like it was like I was a good fit. And I walked away after that conference and I was just like, I literally said out loud to my friends, I don't think I have what it takes to do this.
Oh, dude.
And then my friend Jen, just said, what do you think, a 10-year-old would like better? Some of these books that were pretty weird that we were looking at. At least, I mean, there's a book for everyone, but it was not my cup of tea. She's like, or cool books about space and science, because that's what I was illustrating at the time. And so I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm ever going to get there, but I'm going to at least pick myself up and then try. So again, we need each other, to talk each other off of a ledge sometimes. So
totally, right?
Yeah.
Power of community.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So from there, I had been sending postcards out to publishers for about 2 years and not hearing back. So it felt like I was doing a lot of work.
Yes.
And like getting everything buttoned up, then mailed out. And then I would hear, it was like I just sent it out to a black hole and didn't hear anything.
Oh, dude.
So that for like I sat on this idea for about a year. It was, I came up with this project called Bite-Sized Books, which was
very cool.
A cover and like 10 pages of story. So most picture books are 32 pages. And what I was noticing is that a lot of illustrators would have on their website, they would do a whole book. They would illustrate a cover, and then they would show like 2 or 3 illustrations from the entire book. And so I was like, that's all I really have to do to build out my portfolio. And it's helping me hone my craft, build my portfolio, and then market myself.
Yeah.
And so it started out with my son, who wrote a story when he was in high school. He has autism, so I was trying to encourage him to, like, he might have this, like, be this weird creative writer that, you know, we all, with just weird, quirky stories that honestly I loved, and I think other people would love, just because he doesn't have that social awareness. He's just really him. And so he's like, the premise was a frog takes a rocket to the North Pole, and I was like, I'm in. I got to illustrate that.
Right?
That sounds good.
Go with it.
How it worked was I posted the 10 images on the Instagram carousel, and then I printed physical booklets. So it was like 12 pages, saddle stitched, and so it had a cover, 10 pages, and then I could do like, this book belongs to, and all that. So it was really my love letter to Little Golden Books. I said, I'll never illustrate a Little Golden Book, so you know, why not just give this a shot? And so I actually found some people at Penguin Random House that, and a bunch of other people that like worked on Golden Books, but like really it was just casting a wide net with all the publishers. And I think I got up to about 60 of those, and then of these physical books.
Of the little bite-sized books.
Yeah. And then on the back, it was like, collect them all. So I knew that my name might be forgettable, but they would remember this logo that I made.
Yeah.
It was this little bear reading a book. And then and I was afraid that people would steal this idea. And I was like, what do you got? Like, if that helps somebody else, great. Somebody might do 1 or 2, but no one, like my original goal was to do 9.
Yes.
You know, nobody's going to do 9 and be consistent, because I came from a marketing background. So it's like, you've got to cut through the noise.
Yeah.
And you've got to, people have to have multiple impressions to remember
Yeah,
you.
you're right.
And so
7 or 13? I don't know. Is this
something like
magic number? We always said
I think
7,
it,
but
I think it changes as our attention spans get
yeah,
shorter and shorter.
Right? Yeah. Yeah,
Like 20
true.
years ago, I think we were saying 7. And I think it's gotten to like, it might be up to like
What are you
40.
saying?
It was a great project because I was reading a lot of picture books at the time, and it helped me like go through the whole process, right?
Yeah.
From like the cover to, I started storyboarding, which helps you understand like pacing, and then like coming up with a plan for the illustrations in your book. And then I would go through sketches and then final art, and I was able to get through a lot. I would do about 3 a year. So, and then I actually spent money on the printing and mailing it out there. So it was like, sometimes you have to actually spend money on your future. So
you've got all these little books out there.
yeah.
And are they like collector items now?
No, nobody knows. Nobody knows, but I do. I
But this
know
was
some.
a good thing.
Yeah,
you know
it was
what?
good.
We talked to some people. I mean, Christy, right? Christy Campbell, her whole, that the thing that pushed her over the edge was she did the 30-day logo challenge.
30-day
Oh,
logo
yeah.
challenge.
Right? And she committed herself to a specific personal project,
Right.
which only got her skills better, but it also got her more publicity. And this is kind of what
Right.
happened with you.
Right, and what was amazing is, after sending postcards for 2 years and not getting a single response, every single story I heard back, either through social or
One way or another.
or an
See?
email.
Brilliant.
And I was often an art director. I was like, I gave this to an editor.
Yeah.
And I never would hear anything, but just like after that, but it was just super encouraging. I think one of the weak spots is I just didn't know how to write a full story. As I was just writing series of events, but it really got me writing, and it really got me understanding what made a really, really good picture book. Because a lot of people have ideas for children's books, but it doesn't mean it's any good.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that like the first time you do something, you can't expect that you're just going to be brilliant at it. So it was like this proving ground to like get better and better, and then share it with the right people. I really think you have to share it with the right people that know what to do with it. So
Amazing.
Yeah. So I started hearing responses, but then during that, we all got 2020'd and towards the end. So I only did, the original plan was 9, but I only did 6 because we went into lockdown while I was working on the last one. I was like, we don't know how long this is going to take, so I'm going to finish this off. But then I realized I needed to pivot a little bit because publishers weren't in the offices anymore, and so they wouldn't get. I thought the print version was the strongest version to get somebody's attention.
Yeah.
And they weren't receiving that, so I just kind of had to sit back and think for a little bit. But I had all these like characters and worlds, and so what I ended up doing was taking one of them called Raise Day, and making it a full picture book is like a book. We call it a book dummy. So what you do is you write the full story, and then you sketch it all out, and I lay it all out in InDesign, and then you finalize like at least 2 spreads, and then you can pitch that to, in my case, agents, because if you're writing, you really need a literary agent to make it through.
Yeah.
They're really the gate holders now because everything's so accessible. Publishers lean on them, the literary agents, for to like vet a lot of the books. So they're not reading just any book that comes in because they don't have time for that. So anyway, so it was like I was doing that, and then I came up with a concept of a board book on bioluminescence that was a lift-a-flap that you could like see what the animal was underneath that was glowing and things like that. And then anyway, I was experimenting with some other ideas. I was trying to get in, like figure out like maybe I should write a chapter book series, and like the design and illustration of it was a blast, but I felt like I was writing a school paper again because it was like all long form, and I just did not like that at all. But that was good because even though it took a lot of time, I learned that like I'm actually not good at painting a picture with words. I'm good at just painting the damn picture. So that's what I've I have
the realization.
Yeah. During that time, I'm researching this obscure American artist named Oscar Hunt von Gottschalk, which is a mouthful. He was a commercial artist in New York City around in the late 1880s through the early 1900s, and he just so happens to be my great-great-grandfather.
Jeez. You knew this?
I didn't know much about him. I just knew that I had gotten 2 books that he wrote and illustrated in like 1902 and 1903, and then I had 2 oil paintings. But nobody passed that family knowledge down, and I'm like looking around, and there's like mechanics and engineers and project managers and like not creative folks at all. My mom was like into arts and crafts and kind of has a creative soul, but I didn't see anybody with a career. And so, well, we have a lot of time in 2020, so I go down the rabbit hole of the internet, and so I found a lot of incredible stuff out. So he went to the Rhode Island School of Design from 1880 to 1882, RISD.
Wow.
Yeah. Ever heard of it? Yeah.
Jeez, though.
It was like the 3rd year ever,
Yeah.
But he was born in Rhode Island. And then a few years later, he moves to New York, studies at the Art Students League, which is still a thing today. I think like Norman Rockwell studied there. Some pretty killer artists have studied there. And then he got into the newspaper business as ended up as an art manager.
Yeah.
And then on the side, he's writing and illustrating these children's books.
What is the odd, eh?
Yeah, and then sounding familiar. And so I do all this research. I'm like, okay, he illustrated 4 total. So hundreds of dollars later, I track down like 2 more books, have them shipped to me. And the first one is called Yankee Doodle Gander, and it's about short stories of American history from like colonial times through the War of 1812. And he's trying to have fun with the text and making it fun to read and approachable for kids. The second book was called Lives of the Haunted, which is basically a clever take on an animal book, but it's what happens to the animal after the hunter shoots it. I don't know if it worked back then, but it wouldn't work today.
Wow.
Let's get a little morbid there.
Wow.
And then the third book was Innocent Industries, which he was all about how, like, you see a sack of sugar, you see a bag of flour, how does that get to the shelf in the store?
That's
right?
very cool, though.
And then the fourth book was fantasy, and it was around the time The Wizard of Oz came out, and so I can't help but think he got influenced by that, because that like blew up back then. First 3 books, entertaining takes on nonfiction.
Jeez, eh?
And that's kind of what I do. It hit me really hard. Like, not only did we have similar careers, we had similar sensibilities. You could tell he liked typography. We were both art directors. Like, he would do hand lettering. it was like hardwired into my DNA, and I'm finding out after the fact that I like naturally found this path.
Superpower you?
Oh, it did, because I was like, I realized I wasted so much of my time. Like, I admire great illustrators. There's a lot of great designers and illustrators here that you're like, oh my gosh, like I could never do that. Right. And I'm so busy in awe of all these other people, it makes me feel like my work doesn't matter. Right. And so when I figured that out, it's like, why are you going against your own DNA?
Yeah,
you know,
you're right. You're right.
Lean into your authentic self. He was like this weird force ghost, like encouraging me from beyond the grave, like, be yourself, Josh.
I love it.
So, and so it was like really scary to go like, okay, I'm like this, you know, I feel very weird in the publishing world of what I'm trying to do, because I'm not necessarily seeing what the stuff that I want to write is not necessarily on the bookshelf. I've heard the best advice is like, write the book that you needed as a kid, and I was a reluctant reader, and I needed some entertainment value and some fun.
Really good idea, actually.
Yeah. So I had these book dummies, and so I start finding a literary agent, which is tough. Like, it is not for the faint of heart, because they are slow. Yeah. An agent has a lot of responsibilities. So like now that I see it from the other side, it's like I understand, you know, but it's a lot of silence. So you do this hard work getting your book dummy, you get a pitch, you have to have a cover letter, or whatever that agent wants you. You have to do your homework, right? You have to figure out, how does the agent want you to submit to them, in what capacity. And I found like 12 to 14 agents, I think, and over 9 months, and I was just like, a lot, like mostly nothing, and then a lot of times like I would follow up and then it's like, not for me, or this is too commercial for what we represent, or whatever. And you know, you can take a few rejections, but like after 9 months of just busting your ass after hours, it's like trying to like hustle to follow up, and sometimes I was like making edits to what I was working on and then submitting to other agents that I found, but it just got very disheartening. And then I had this last ditch Hail Mary of there was this thing on Twitter. I don't know if they still do it, but it was called PB Pitch, so picture book pitch. And it was a day where you could, if you have a manuscript or a book dummy, you can tweet out with the right hashtag a summary of your book, and then if you have images, you can post those, whether it's sketches or final art. Well, I had those ready to go.
Everything's there.
Yeah, and so I put it once in the morning, once in the afternoon. No agent liked my post. So I said agents can, if they like your post, you can submit to them. So no agents liked my post. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board, retool some stuff.
Dang.
Well, then the next morning I found I got a like from an agent. And so I submit to her, and a week later we're on a call. And I usually have to translate myself to the publishing world. But she beat me to it. We were right on the Zoom call. She's like, I've not been this excited for a picture book in a long time.
Wow.
Or in a while. And she said, your artwork is beautiful, you have entertainment value, and it has commercial appeal. That was the first time in publishing that I heard commercial as a positive, which is weird, because you would think you want to sell your book, right? But what they mean is like, it's not really, it's kind of a buzzword that publishing uses. It's ultimately, it means it's not for us. But But this agent specialized in nonfiction, which was really cool. And so I get off the call. I said, I got to think about it. She made me an offer. I was like, I got to think about it, just because I was in disbelief, right? Yeah. And then I was like, wait. And after I got off the call, I was like, wait, I'm allowed to be me, and somebody likes that, wants that, is excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good. It was just validation after just some like loneliness of like just like creating alone in the dark, and you know, going through 9 months.
Dude.
Yeah, and so that was just like validation that when I lean into who I am, like it becomes a little bit more powerful. You're not for everybody, like right? You're not for everybody.
Absolutely.
But it's about finding the right people that you can work with. And so I end up signing with her. We start working on edits to the book, and 2 months later, she decides to leave agenting altogether.
Oh shit.
So I'm so burnt out.
How does this happen? Oh my God.
And then she gave me 5 contacts, was trying to leave me in good hands, but 4 people said no right away. I was passed off from one agent to a junior agent, and I wasn't sure if I was a good fit there. And then I was applied to a couple more places, and then a few months later, I have an agent that got back to me and was excited about this bioluminescent book. So I ended up signing with her, Natasha Morris, who I'm agented by now, and then we got to work submitting. And while I was searching for an agent, I started getting some of those dream jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I told you guys about a little earlier.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Like, I mean, the world's best books that everybody knows since they were like a kid.
Yeah, so I never thought I would actually illustrate a little golden book, but then I got offered a Lego pirate little golden book.
Lego, everybody.
And I was so in disbelief because Lego pirates were my favorite growing up. And I'm like, I'm old enough to remember when they came out, and they would like blew my mind because there was like, it was like a level up for Lego because there was like, we have a monkey now, we have a crocodile, we have like these.
I only remember the Lego space, the whole space series.
Oh
which
yeah, I
is
love
what your
those.
shirt was yesterday. For the record, you had the space logo on your shirt.
Yes, the Lego.
I can appreciate that.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And I thought I had shaken imposter syndrome by then, but like after like the novelty wore off, it was like, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of other illustrators that should be doing this. Why are they allowing me to do this? Like I felt I slipped into the system somehow. and you know, I think that's just some of that lack of confidence. But then I had to remind myself, like, no, you love Lego, you love little golden books. What is your take on it? Right. And I leaned into that, and I think I stuck the landing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, because there's more than one of those on your desk,
I have
right?
I've now illustrated 4. The 4th one comes out in July. But yeah.
See?
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, it's like, I think a lot of this was like you were almost fighting yourself throughout this.
Yeah.
Right? And it's hard to overcome that because once you leaned into your personality, once you leaned into you,
Right.
all that's where everything seemed like it was working.
Yes. Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. And it's still like unsteady because I can see it now.
Yeah.
Like looking back, it's
yeah.
easy to see it now. Yeah. But like through it, it's just like I just had to learn to keep going. You know, just keep going through it. Like if you get knocked down, you know, feel your feelings. You know, be sad about it, or frustrated, or angry, or whatever that emotion is. Acknowledge it, but then get back. Don't let it stop you. Get back up. Keep going. So
yeah. How cool is that, right? Like it is. It's like the ultimate, like, you know, we always talk about perseverance.
Yeah.
Man, dude, your whole life has been perseverance, right?
Yeah, like destiny, like lineage.
The grandpa story is amazing, right?
Taking you in this direction, but also stopping you from doing this too, right?
Yeah.
But you kept going.
Yeah.
This was one of those situations where you were your own worst enemy?
I think it was just my lack of confidence and self-doubt, right? And I think I get that, come by that honestly. I think it's part of like, there's a lot of folks in my family that kind of deal with that. And, and so, but learning to see it now and knowing, you know, okay, I don't have to put as much emotional weight in comparison now, right?
Yeah.
And I can see who I am by creating lots and lots of work. I know who I am, what's working, what's not, what my sensibilities are. So it just takes time, I think, to like work through that, but you got to do the work.
Yeah, and that's it. Right?
You know,
you can't be scared to do the work.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then another point of validation at this time was an art director she was an art director at the time, but found my work on Behance. It was the nonfiction work that I had written from the bite-sized books, and she was from Discovery Education, which I had been trying to get into ed tech but didn't have any contacts. And so they create lessons and interactives for the classroom.
Yep.
And so I got hired as an illustrator at first, and then they knew that I had art direction experience, and so that's led to I've actually been more consistently hired as an art director project to project. But it's educational work, which I love, and it's like all the things that I've worked on in the past kind of work beautifully in this role. So it's like when you get those little points of validation along the way, it's just encouraging. Like, okay, this is the work that I love doing. This is the work that I worked hard to get.
Yeah.
And I want to keep doing this. So my agent and I start submitting to publishers, like I think in February of 2022, and it's a long process because they're slogging through all the submissions. And so there were a lot of quick rejections, and then there were a lot of just not for me. It's not going to work out. And we hear in July from a little publisher called Scholastic. Yeah, that shocked me because I was like, Scholastic would be a good fit for this book. And the editor said, I have a revise and respond. Well, what that means is here's a list of revisions of what I think will make this book better. I want you to make them and then resubmit. So you don't get an offer, but you get to resubmit.
Here's your chance.
Yeah, here's your chance. And that doesn't always work out. But this book dummy had been reviewed by 12 people that are highly qualified, really good at their job, either art director, editor, or author illustrators themselves who have published books, and they were giving me solid feedback. But this editor said, I think it's a pacing issue, and so just rearrange these things. And I changed it, and it fit beautifully in the 3-act structure. She was the most helpful through this whole process.
Yeah.
So I submit that I hear back in July, I submit that back in August, and then in October I get an official offer.
Wow.
For a book.
And then it finally happened.
Yes, for a book. And then I was talking with the editor in the Scholastic offices, and she said, this is everything we're looking for in a nonfiction children's book. And I was
Amazing.
Like, what?
Yeah. Right?
Like what? After so much mostly just silence and then not for me's. And it's not always a good fit for that agent or that publisher, but I found my fit. And that was just holy cow.
Man, that's awesome.
That's kind of what it is. It's like being yourself, being true to yourself, and then getting to that. Yeah, right? It comes back to authenticity.
Yeah, and not being afraid to scrap work that you've worked on to make it better, and keep trying to keep getting better.
Sometimes people keep trying to revise what they're working on. They don't want to let that go.
Right. I had to kill many darlings, as they say on this book. There were many things I fell in love with early on in the book, and I had to be talked out of it. It's oh, okay, yeah, that's not working like I thought it would, and then I had to revise, over time. But but just being open and humble to change things and grow. And
would you do anything different if you had to do it over?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I look at it, I like how it feels like you're just holding on for dear life the whole time. But now that I see where it's planned, had I not done those 4 years, I mean, I wish I would have gotten out sooner. Right.
Yeah.
But there was something to those 4 years of just nothing going right that just drove me. That's really when I got my drive, right, to really go for it. So it's I don't know if I really would, it's more, and it's more just accept. I think so often it's we have this idea of what we should be doing, and for me it's paying attention to the moments in life, whether they're good and bad, and just reflecting on that, and trying to gain as much wisdom as possible through those times.
That's
So
kind of cool though.
Yeah, so it's almost I mean, what do I wish it would have gone differently? Sure, but through all the ups and downs and zigs and zags, it's I learned so much, and I'm so grateful that I just didn't stay stuck where I was.
Right.
So I can't change the past, but I can have a redeeming. I can look at it with a little bit of redemption of what it caused me to do, which I think makes a more meaningful life, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely it does.
Everybody loves the redemption arc.
Yes.
So what's the future bringing for you?
Well, my debut picture book as an author and illustrator comes out through Scholastic on July 2nd, 2024.
Nice.
It's available for pre-order. It's now called Ray's Big Day.
Ray's Big Day.
Ray's Big Day, yes. And so I've been doing a lot of pre-orders here, so it's been going good. And so my next, I probably can't say this, but my next. I've got my next book
planning out.
Yeah, planning out.
I've
got a book dummy that probably can't say too much about, but it's that's ready. That's really it on the horizon right now. But there's stuff that always comes in,
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I have the fourth Lego Little Golden book is How to Be a Ghost, and it comes out in July as well. It's cool. Yeah. It's really cool, and there's a haunted mansion that it's set at, and there's this little girl. So I'm not giving away anything. The cover's already out there, Anyway, those are kind of the two books that are coming out this year that I've worked on.
Yeah,
crazy busy.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, and that's awesome. A good thing.
That's perfect.
Well, and it kind of feels like it's a little different if you're crazy busy over doing stuff you love,
right?
Versus crazy busy working for someone else that you don't love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I feel very fortunate. It does feel like a job, like anything during some times, and there's definitely clients are still clients, and we're trying to work together and hopefully work on great things. But it's great knowing that this is the path that I want to be on. You
Yeah.
know, it's still uncertain. There's still like, I don't know where it's going to go, but you know, I've just learned a lot of just keep going. You just don't know what you're going to discover.
Exactly.
Yeah, very cool.
That's the beauty of this
That's
space that we're in.
that's the space that we're in,
Right?
buddy.
Yeah, I know. It's great.
Where do people find your story? Where do people find you, your illustration, possibly
Yeah.
pre-order what you got?
Yeah, so my website is joshjlewis, LEWIS.com. And on I'm primarily on Instagram, Threads, I'm giving that a shot, and then LinkedIn, and it's at Josh J. Lewis.
Okay,
so if you
cool.
search that, you can find me there. And then you can pre-order Raise Big Day through Barnes & Noble. Your local bookstore would be great because that they always need some support. And so that would be my first recommendation is your local bookstore. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Scholastic.com, you can find it. So basically search Raise Big Day, Josh Lewis, and you can pre-order it.
That's amazing, dude. If there ever is a story of stick-to-itness, right, and just kind of like ride this through and don't worry about the big waves that are hitting you, but the ones that are, carry you forward, this is it, Josh.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Man, thanks for coming on. This
Yeah,
was
thanks
actually
for
a
having me. I'm
fun
so glad we got to
story,
bump into
all
each
right?
other.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm just
right?
down the way.
Yeah, right, literally, right?
Yes, neighbors, table neighbors.
Table neighbors.
All right, everybody. I hope you got something from this episode. Be sure to check out Josh and his material or pick up his book from the areas that he said.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
All right, everybody. My name's Massimo.
My name is Sean.
And you are?
Josh Lewis.
There you go.
Sorry, I didn't have a cue card for my own name.
Stay creative.
And stay angry.
Peace.